Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk to you guys about a subject that has genuinely been bothering me for quite a while, and to be frank, I think it's been on the minds of a lot of people out there that frankly just like to sit there on their sofa and watch a bit of telly. Today I want to talk about streaming services. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is a channel that talks about network attached storage all the time, and this video is going to be me saying to you, get away from streaming services, you own a NAS and watch your own kit on it. And don't get me wrong, I do quite like watching media on my NAS, but also, hand on heart, I actually use a lot of streaming services myself. Right now, at the time of recording, I have got my multimedia being enjoyed in a couple of different main ways. I've got a NAS at home that's got a collection of media that I've been building up over about two and a half decades. Some of it is old TV shows that I really like that I can't get anymore. Some of it is a big old Christmas folder that's got stuff that I've added year on year and stuff like that, and also my home movies and my photos and stuff. But at the same time, I also have a bunch of streaming services. Right now, I have got Disney Plus, I got my phone contract there, I've got Amazon Prime Video, and I've got Netflix. So I've got those three, burning a little hole in my wallet, but I do watch my TV shows all the time. Some new stuff, some old stuff, catching up on bits in between. But right now, at the end of 2022, a number of us have been sitting there looking at the money leaving our bank account every month, thinking about the TV shows we watch, and also watching as streaming platforms have become considerably more polarised and isolated from one another, with different shows and all the media we like to watch now being grabbed by all the different streaming platforms one by one. A lot of us are wondering, are things now, in terms of streaming, no good? Because right now, I've been doing some calculations on the top 5 streaming platforms out there, working out how much they cost most users in most default setups annually, and working out, am I better off ditching all of those or ditching my NAS and going straight to them? Because you can use both, much like I am doing right now, and probably will proceed to do for at least another year, maybe 2 at a push. But I think at that point I'm going to have to jump off. And hopefully in today's video I will help you decide where is the best place for you to enjoy your media. This video is not about just saying which one is better. Are streaming services better than owning your own media? This is not the purpose of this video. This video is about helping you decide which one best suits your needs, your setup, your home or family environment, ultimately your skill set, and which one is best suited for you to once again get home, grab your remote and just start watching telly. So, let's start breaking down the costs, working out what we like to imbibe. Now, of course, what I'm going to talk about now is not the same for everyone. A number of you are going to watch this and say, I watch way more than that, I watch way less than that, I pay more than that, I pay less than that. I've tried to work out as the best average as I can, and all my maths today is based on the following. So, when it comes to the 5 streaming platforms, I'm going to work on the assumption that in order to get the best experience there and get as much media as possible, that you're going to use all 5. So I think most people are running 2 to 3 streaming services right now. But with all 5, if you were to use all of them, and this is using the 5 most coversome streaming platforms right now, and therefore you have access to pretty much the gamut, it would be Netflix, Disney Plus, Prime, Hulu and HBO Max there in the US. Now, in the UK and other regions, there are other things like Now TV here in the UK and stuff like that. And I will get onto a little bit more of the regional differences later. But for now, let's look at those 5. Now, say you wanted to have those 5 and all of the streaming that includes there for you. So that is with very little crossover, because between these platforms there's very little crossover of services, hence the reason for this video, the way we've seen a lot of TV shows and seasons being bulk moved from one to the other over services over a period of time before it gets moved to another one. It works out as the following, and this is based on at least HD quality, sometimes inclusive of UHD quality and 4K depending on the different multimedia. But right now, for Netflix, to have at least 4 users enjoying it is $19.99 or $15.49 if you only want to have 2 devices in standard definition. With Disney Plus, it is $13.99 in terms of dollars, and again there are ad supported ones, but we're not going to count that again for reasons coming up later in the video. If you're going to go for Amazon Prime, it is $9.99, or you can get inclusive of the full Prime delivery package for $14.99. In terms of Hulu, it is $12.99, or if you want to go for the ad-supported version, it's $6.99. And finally, in HBO Max, it is $14.99 or $9.99 for the ad-supported version. All of those together, if you go for the standard HD packages there, non-ad supported, it works out per month at $67.45 per month. It works about 59 quid. Over the year, that equates to a little over 800. It's $809.40, or in the UK, that translates in current currency conversions at £713.34. Now, I have, of course, done currency conversions there. I have not gone specifically for UK packages or European packages there to go into euros. I'm sticking with the US ones there, mainly because those top 5 searches are US based, and also because I've looked at the statistics and there are more Americans watching this channel than any other region, or other regions are in there. So I've just gone with the larger spectrum, so I apologise in advance to everyone else in the world. So that is the number we're starting with. So for that $809, call it $809 or whatever, we're not going to count the cents. That means you've got access to the 5 platforms and all of the stuff they're putting out. Now bear in mind, not all of them are giving you the very latest stuff. When it comes to Disney Plus, for example, and Hulu and HBO Max, that does give you access to their latest release within their own platforms, of course. But when it comes to things like Netflix and Prime, they are still very much limited to what the media provider deems the right time to give them that media. So if you go to Amazon Prime, for example, there's a lot of stuff included with the Prime package, but it doesn't necessarily give you access to the latest things. It's only the latest things added to Prime. Now, if we go to the alternative side, we can look at if you were to buy that media yourself. So firstly, we need to know just how much that media is worth, because saying $809 is not enough to equate that against what that means in terms of TV shows. So again, there's been a little bit of my own personal experience in this, but when it comes down to it, I don't think we're all watching a movie a day. We've all got lives, we've all got jobs, we've all got school. We can't watch a movie a day. We can watch TV a day, a box set and more. Or we're not going to watch a box set a day either. Maybe you can Netflix and chill. I don't know your life. But I've worked it out that every day you would watch 2 episodes of some new TV show in a box set, and you're going to watch about 2 movies a week on the weekends, when you've got the evenings where you haven't got to get up in the evening, but you're still going to watch TV shows on that Saturday and the Sunday. So that equates, again, to 2 episodes a day, and it works out to 2 movies a week, at least what I'm going with my calculation. So that equates to 730 episodes of TV, which, based on a 24 episode season, is 30.4 seasons a year that you're going to watch. In terms of movies, a lot easier, 52 weeks in a year, 2 movies a week, 104 movies. So 104 movies, 730 episodes, or just call it 30 seasons for now. That is what we are dealing with. Now, how does that translate? Well, I went to Google Play, I went to Amazon, I went to Vudu and different platforms like that to look at pricing. And if you are looking at HD quality, and also bearing in mind older and new movies and TV shows, because that's really important, because obviously the newer something is, fear of missing out, FOMO, the more expensive it is. You do find that the older shows, you can pick up movies for as little as $3 to $5.99 in dollars there, but the newer stuff knocks around for between $10 and even $14 or $15 there. So what we've done is go straight down the middle and call that $10 or $9.99 all the way across each of those movies. And it comes to TV shows, I've seen that, again, the older shows you can normally pick up for about $7, $8.99, to the newer stuff, which is knocking around for between $16 to $19.99. So I've gone with $15, just straight there, down the middle there, and that is going to cover old or new in terms of seasons. I don't care if you're watching old episodes of NYPD Blue or you're watching the latest Game of Thrones, we're going to call that $15 per season there. And again, we're talking 30 seasons of the year, and we're talking 104 movies in a year. So that equated to $450 for your TV shows and $816 for your movies. Together, that all came in at $1,266 per year. So again, that's a bigger amount of spend than on those streaming platforms, wasn't it? Remember, we calculated for those 5 streaming services $809, and if you were to buy 30 seasons and 104 movies, it would set you back $1,266. A big increase there of over $400. Now, again, straight off the bat, it looks like streaming services make a hell of a lot more sense, don't they, in terms of value for money? But it's not that simple, is it? Because really, what I've just described to you is much like my speed test using Atto or AS or any of those bench testing softwares for drives and more. We are describing an artificial situation. There is no single user is watching precisely 30 seasons and precisely 104 movies, is there? Everyone's very, very different, and it's very, very fluid. And that, even then, a 30 seasons in a year is pretty outlandish. I'm not certain everyone's watching that much telly on average, but still nonetheless, we have to also talk about where else we get our media. I mentioned at the beginning, and I think it's worth mentioning again, that I said I would talk about those free services and those ad-supported services, because I think it would be incredibly ignorant for us not to acknowledge that many of us watch our TV in non-premium fashion, even though we are paying for premium services, and even though we own lots of our TV shows already, be it on a hard drive in a drawer in our desk, or on a NAS or on a PC or whatever, I think most of us have to acknowledge that we are using things like the following. Firstly, we are using online platforms like YouTube, like online streaming platforms like the Internet Archive, which grows all the time with huge databases of old TV shows and movies that we can access. Again, there are online stream services that we are not paying for our premium services or storing locally. Next, there are catch-up services, free view services, things like iPlayer and other equivalents in the US where you can just catch up on recent TV and movies that have been there, and obviously they are ad-supported in a number of ways. Also, when we look at lots of free streaming services, more and more things like IMDb and more are producing, or Vuzi, I believe it's called, producing their own free streaming platforms that are supported by ad revenue. Now, we have to include that in the middle there, because that still exists, where you're just paying for it with time. With those adverts and your attention, you're still technically paying for them, but you're just not doing it in a black and white currency fashion. Also, we have to acknowledge that in order for us to go down the buy it yourself route and own all of that media, if we were to go to all of those different media platforms and owning that those TV shows and stuff that we want to buy, they've got to live somewhere. So alongside the cost of owning that stuff, that $1,266, got to think about storage. Now, if we were trying to enjoy that media in as in many ways in which we want to, nice and easily via the local area network, without having to worry about the internet and more, you're going to look at about a $500 spend on a NAS. And I know that's an incredibly vague figure I just said in terms of varying quantity, capacity, access and more. But you're going to have to spend minimum about $400 to $500. That would get you a mid-range 1 or a 2-bay NAS device and a couple of drives inside, maybe 3 to 4 TB inside there. That would give you terabytes of storage, which is more than enough for future-proofing in terms of all of those TV shows and movies that I mentioned there. Bear in mind, again, we are not talking about 4K. I've been pretty clear on that at the beginning, but I first think it's worth mentioning as well that most of the movies that I'm talking about range between 800 meg to about 1.2 gig, and TV shows and seasons around about 4 to 6 gig, or maybe even 8 gig for those 24 episodes there. So at the moment, once again, it's worth highlighting that in terms of cost, streaming services still have things beat. You have to spend a lot more money on buying these TV shows and owning them outright, as well as owning the hardware to put them on, versus streaming services, which are a great deal more convenient to press the button. However, hold up. Once again, it's just not that black and white and clear, is it? Because first and foremost, you don't have to buy all of your media from online streaming services. If you want to go to Google Play, go to Amazon, go to all of these different sites online where you can buy your media, you can do that, and they do have seasonal offers and prices do fluctuate just like anywhere else. But you're not limited to that, are you? You can, if you like, just buy the physical media. You can just get hold of a burner device like this. This is a USB to DVD burner here, this device, this set me back about $20. It cost me about £17 actually when I bought it. Or I could have got a Blu-ray equivalent, which is about $69 to about $70 if you go to some of the premium multi-disc versions to, rip Blu-rays if you choose, and you've bought the media, it's completely legal, you own the media, you went out and bought it. And if you go to your local branch of CEX or whatever the equivalent of your second-hand media shop is, you know damn well that buying the physical media itself is so much cheaper, and you actually physically own it. And this is the other enormous point that people seem to conveniently sometimes, but sometimes inconveniently, forget about streaming services. Because when you go for the streaming service, yes, you can watch the latest stuff, you can watch stuff that's trending, it's great, but not always. And a lot of the time, the amount of time that a TV show or movie is on a streaming platform is limited, unless they have produced it, like Netflix do a lot of their own shows, and of course, Disney Plus and Marvel all in bed together means all of those movies are going to be on there. But a lot of the time, on the streaming services, you still are limited to the scope of what they provide. And unless you go for some of the ad-supported services that we talked about, some of the online streaming services there, which are very hard often to actually access via your TV unless you're watching on a laptop in bed, or you are going for paid ad services there, and again, this includes YouTube and more, where some shows are on there which are ad-supported, you do have a much more limited scope overall when you think about the sheer range of multimedia. And if you go to your local second-hand shop that's got DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff, you will find stuff in there that you will either never be able to find online, or to find it online, you have to download and access some obscure streaming platform that you never planned on getting any kind of subscription or a 30-day trial for. And again, when you get hold of digital media, you can not only own it now, and will just keep the disc if you choose, but then burn it onto a digital version, store it on a NAS, store it on a PC. If you don't want to go down the full road of NAS, getting simple multimedia connected hard drives that give you access to media over DLNA are ridiculously cheap. We are talking double figures, not treble figures. On top of that, you have applications like Plex Media Server that not only allows you to stream the content you own anywhere in the world or on a local area network, but present it in a way not dissimilar and, dare I say, identical to the likes of Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus and more. Cast, trailers, information, reviews, recommendations, graphics, the presentation, the client applications on the mobile devices, client connected devices to your TV, and even on your smart TV tablets and more. So a lot of the time, the actual ownership of the media is all too quickly overlooked when it comes to streaming platform services. And for me, it is the reason that owning the media and having your own multimedia server compared with streaming services is kind of worthy of the extra spend. It's not always all-encompassing, otherwise why do I still have a few personal streaming platforms already still coming out of my bank account? Well, because when it comes to different media, sometimes, like you, I give in to fear of missing out. I want to see the latest Spider-Man movie, and it's as simple as that. Now, we mentioned about the long-term costs. I do think it's worth highlighting, just like I've said recently in some other videos, that when you run a NAS, you've got to think about power. Because when you're using your Amazon Fire Stick or whatever to access your streamed accounts from Netflix and more, all you've got to worry about is the power going into your TV and the power going into that stick. When you've got a NAS, these devices might be on days, weeks, months, years at a time. That adds up. And a lot of people are worried about the cost of a network attached storage device in terms of the lecky bill and the power. Let me tell you not to worry. I mean, even if you use one of these full guns blazing, and I'm saying 24/7 mad crazy access, we have done power consumption tests on QNAPs, on Synologies, and the most we've ever seen is about 7p a day. And that was when we were maxing out the system, doing any number of services, not just media, and the odds of you doing that with this multimedia setup are non-existent. It's going to cost you pence per month, per year. It really will. So do not think about the running cost of the NAS if what you're going to get the NAS for is simple multimedia. Now, let's summarise things a little bit here, because I feel we covered so many areas that we need to really break it down to pro-con of each. So, first and foremost, first advantage there I'm going to give to non-third-party streaming services. If you own the media, that key word there is ownership. You own the media. You're not limited to how many devices that you can choose to share it with. When you look at a lot of the streaming platforms out there, they will say you can access our services with 2 devices, 3 devices, 4. And after about 2 to 3 devices, they charge you more to add another device. Now, you might have 2 TVs at the end of the house. You might have a family member accessing it. It's starting to cost real money, and they are clamping down on that. Whereas when you own the media, if you're using a very basic DLNA media device, or you're using a NAS, you have limitless number of devices that can access it. And in fact, the only limit you have is the hardware you're using. If you're not going to factor in things like transcoding and the reshaping of media, that's not really a concern. And the other thing is, when it comes to the ownership of the media, it's owning the physical of the set of the media. If you use streaming services, we all know the ballad of, oh, it's no longer available on this platform. Or you try to watch a TV show that has seasons 1, 2 and 3, but 4, 5, 6, 7 is elsewhere. Or the nightmare scenario, you've got access to seasons 2, 7 and 9, and that's it. What is the point? Streaming services chop and change where TV shows are available, and it's never been clearer than currently. Now we're starting to see very clear lines being drawn between those big 5 players. It used to be on their own produced shows, but now we are seeing very much an era of strict fidelity on TV shows, where a TV show will only be available on one platform for a given period of time before it moves to another, with very little crossover in between. Now, all that negativity, we can't ignore it. Streaming platform services, even when we talked about running the 5 big guns together there, it was still cheaper. It still works out cheaper per year. Now, we should mention, and I should have mentioned this earlier really, that when you do pay that annual fee on those streaming services, obviously you're getting that TV show, those TV shows for the year, but if you stop paying, you lose access to everything. That money, by channeling that into media that you buy, you own it. It doesn't happen that you buy a disc and then a year from now the disc goes, sorry, you've got to pay. It doesn't work that way. And with the streaming services, remember that yes, they cost less, but that's because they cost less in small increments and you're not really owning anything. Maybe you didn't want to own the latest Thor Love and Thunder movie. God, that was terrible. I understand that. But when it comes to that price, remember the difference between price and value. Very, very key. Now, another thing to talk about, access. When it comes to these 2 different kinds of platforms, it should be said that the streaming platform has fewer access advantages to it. Now, what I mean by that is you've got to have an internet connection. Now, a number of you will immediately say, no, you can download it. I can download in Netflix, I can download in Amazon, I can download. You're right, you can download within those proprietary client devices. But that's the point. It's within those proprietary client devices. There's an element of foresight that you need, where if you know you're going to watch a thing in a few days, you make sure to download it onto the device you want to watch it on. You can't remove it from that. It's encrypted on there. You can't just, I've downloaded it and run away with it. It doesn't work that way. And also, most of these downloads that you do within the app have a time limit. And if they're not used within, say, 7 days, it either self-deletes or it's an invalid file, which will eventually delete itself anyway. When it comes to network-attached storage devices or DLNA media devices, there's network access and remote access. Yes, there's a little bit more fiddling around that we'll talk about in a bit, but utilising a NAS system, utilising a standard DLNA media box, UPnP support and more, access is a lot easier, and it's on the local area network and therefore faster performance and faster throughput, but then with the option of remote access if you choose to. And again, whether you use proprietary first-party tools or things like Plex Media Server on your system, it's still going to be advantageous. Where does it all go wrong? Well, back over to the streaming services. My God, they are easy, aren't they? Half of the appeal of the streaming services, be they your Disneys, your Amazon, your Netflix, your Hulus, it doesn't matter because they're all frighteningly easy. You download the app in the App Centre, you bung in your login credentials, and that's literally all you had to do. That's it. When it comes to the other services I've mentioned before, whether you're going to go down the road of burning multimedia or you're going to go down the road where you're going to use third-party client devices to download the media you've purchased elsewhere and send it to the device. There's a lot more hassle. And the same thing goes with if you're going to go with remote access. These kind of server or storage local devices for remote access over the internet, if that's something you want to do with family members or yourself when you're on working away or on holiday, it requires more hassle, more setup, more fiddling around. And I think a lot of users who want to move away from streaming platforms often overlook that there are a few more kind of get your hands dirty moments than you would have expected compared with the ease and streamlined nature of streaming services. You are paying for that convenience, so do bear that in mind. Now, I've already covered that business of buying older media and how you can buy you can buy secondhand CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays very, very, very easily and give yourself full long-time access to it, in case a lot of you out there, I do know, will buy media, rip the media, sell the media. It's up to you. You bought it, you do you. But that is just not an option. And on streaming services, you can't really request a refund on some of those shows, and you certainly are kind of stuck in an ecosystem where your media lives in that ecosystem. And what's worse is that when you pay for media in that ecosystem, unless you download it and store it on something like a NAS, when that platform's gone, it's gone. We've talked about PlayStation Network and other gaming platforms and Steam and stuff like that. When games are removed from there for licensing reasons, for any issue to do with the game, anything like that, they're gone forever, whether you purchase them or not. They might give you a grace period of a year where you can still access it, but one look at things like Google Stadia recently. When Google Stadia, Google have basically said, look, we gave it our college try, we can't work with this, we're going to close it down next year. When they announced that, people were able to were given refunds on things they purchased, which is incredibly rare. Because in most cases, when you buy digital and you buy online stream, when the platform goes, your media goes too. So again, worth bearing that in mind. But one advantage that the streaming platforms give you that just is always going to be a concern with a NAS or a localized storage for your media, it's capacity. When you go for streaming platforms, again, your Netflix, your Disney, your whatever, these platforms are limitless to you. You're never going to have to worry about not having space because they take care of that. All you have to care about is watching your telly, and that's it. When it comes to this, you owning your own media collection and streaming locally, local area network or from a NAS to you and many other devices, you're always going to have to think about capacities. Remember that number I mentioned earlier on about 30 box sets a year and 104 movies. Even if you're not maxing out the capacity, imagine you did that every single year for 5 years. You're going to have to start thinking about that capacity as it grows. Now, that's still an extreme number I mentioned, but still nonetheless, it's worth bearing in mind that the minute you go down that road, you may have to start considering spending a little bit more down the line to increase that capacity. But once again, it comes against price versus value. Because one thing I have not talked about up till now is basically making the most of your investment. When you do buy things like a NAS, yes, I mentioned $400 to $500 to get some middle of the range sort of NAS up and running there. You're not limited to multimedia. You can have it as a backup for all your devices. You might be running Google or Office backups of your storage right now. Now you can move it to a localized backup. They arrive with surveillance platforms. You can have cameras around your home or business environment. You can utilize the device for schoolwork. You can use it for actual work. You can use it for anything. So when it comes to buying a storage device for your multimedia and localizing all of your multimedia enjoyment, bear in mind that those devices are multifunctional. They give you the option to do lots of things. You're not just whacking out 400 to 500 nicker for one purpose. They do lots of things. And for me, that's one of the other reasons why going down that road for owning your own multimedia, and why I personally have both streaming and NAS services for my multimedia right now is actually all right. But for how much longer, we don't know. I really hope this video has helped you decide the priorities of your own multimedia needs. Do let me know in the comments if it did. I know this has been a long video, but I think it's a subject that a lot of us are starting to come to terms with when we're thinking about how and where we enjoy our media, and obviously how much it's costing. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this, let me know in the comments. Click like if you have, subscribe if you want to learn more. There should be an article detailing this full video with lots more information linked in the description, or if you're still on the fence about what you need, use the free advice section over on NAS Compares, or use the free forum Ask NAS Compares so you can speak to us, me and Eddie, and the rest of the NAS community. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.